Marcus Chen floated in the zero-gravity maintenance bay, his welding torch casting dancing shadows across the damaged hull of the alien vessel. The Cathara ship had been drifting dead in space for 3 weeks before the salvage crew found it. Now, as the only human engineer willing to work on Xenotech, Marcus found himself alone with the mysterious craft. The ship's design defied conventional physics. Smooth curves flowed like water frozen in time, and the hull material felt warm despite the cold vacuum surrounding them. Most crews avoided alien salvage jobs, but Marcus had always been curious about how other species solved engineering problems. This particular vessel, however, was unlike anything in the databases. "Control, this is Chen. I'm starting work on the main power coupling." Marcus spoke into his comm unit. His voice echoed strangely in his helmet, as if the ship itself was listening. "Copy that, Marcus. Remember, we need that ship operational enough to tow back to station. The buyers are paying premium for working Cathara tech," came the reply from Captain Rodriguez aboard their salvage vessel, the Iron Maiden. Marcus activated his diagnostic scanner and pressed it against the ship's hull. The readings made no sense. Energy signatures fluctuated in patterns that seemed almost organic. Like a heartbeat, the power core wasn't damaged as they'd initially thought. It was dormant, waiting. He pulled himself along the ship's exterior using magnetic handholds, searching for the main access port. The Cathara were known for their biotechnology, growing ships rather than building them. This one looked like it had been cultivated from some massive seed, its surface rippling with what appeared to be nerve pathways beneath translucent armor plating. When Marcus found the airlock, it recognized his presence before he even touched the controls. The portal iris opened with a wet, organic sound that made his skin crawl. Inside, bioluminescent strips provided soft blue lighting, and the air registered as breathable on his sensors. Against protocol, but driven by engineering curiosity, Marcus switched to internal air and removed his helmet. The smell hit him immediately. Not unpleasant, but alien. Like ozone mixed with growing things, with an undertone he couldn't identify. The corridor walls pulsed gently, and Marcus realized he was inside something that was more grown than built. His footsteps made no sound on the spongy floor material. Following the strongest energy readings on his scanner, Marcus made his way deeper into the vessel. The ship's interior was a maze of organic curves and chambers that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Several times he was certain a passage had been on his left, only to find it had moved to his right. The central chamber took his breath away. A massive sphere suspended in the ship's heart, covered in crystalline formations that pulsed with inner light. It wasn't just a power core, it was beautiful. Almost artistic. Like a sculpture made of living energy. Conduits grew from it like roots, spreading throughout the ship's structure. Marcus approached carefully, his scanner going wild with readings he'd never seen before. The energy output was enormous, but contained within some kind of field that his instruments couldn't properly analyze. As he got closer, symbols began appearing on the crystal surfaces. Not Cathara script, which was in all the databases. This was something else entirely. He pulled out his portable translation computer and aimed it at the symbols. The device struggled for several minutes before producing a partial translation. Warning. Dimensional matrix. Unstable. Authorized. Personnel only. Dimensional matrix. Marcus had heard theoretical physicists discuss such concepts, but no known technology could actually manipulate dimensional space. Yet here it was, grown into the heart of an alien vessel like the most natural thing in the universe. His comm unit crackled. "Marcus, what's your status? We're reading some strange energy spikes from your location. Just normal startup procedures. Control. The power core is more complex than we thought. Going to need more time. Copy, but make it quick. We've got company incoming. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL, about 2 hours out. Configuration. Unknown." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with space's cold. Unknown ships appearing right after they'd found this vessel couldn't be coincidence. He looked back at the crystal sphere, noting how the symbols had changed. Now they read, "Dimensional anchor compromised. Reality bleed detected. Reality bleed. The term was from theoretical papers about what might happen if someone actually managed to puncture the barriers between parallel dimensions. Most scientists considered it pure fantasy, but as Marcus watched, the air around the power core began to shimmer like heat waves. And for just a moment, he could swear he saw through the wall to another version of the chamber, where the crystal was black instead of blue. He blinked, and everything was normal again. Almost normal. The symbols now pulsed urgently. Automatic systems engaging. Dimensional stabilization protocol initiated. The ship came alive around him. Not just powered up, but truly alive. The walls breathed, conduits glowed brighter, and a low, harmonious hum filled the air. Marcus felt the artificial gravity activate, pulling him gently toward what the ship considered down. His scanner showed massive energy building in systems he couldn't identify. Control, I'm reading massive power fluctuations in here. The ship is activating something. Get out of there, Marcus. Those incoming ships just increased speed. They'll be here in 90 minutes. And they're broadcasting in a language our computers don't recognize. But Marcus couldn't leave. Not yet. The symbols were telling a story. And his translation computer was finally getting better at reading them. Fragments of meaning emerged. Emergency protocols. Dimensional refugees. Reality storm approaching. Sanctuary protocol. The Cathara hadn't built this ship. They'd found it, just like his crew had. But unlike Marcus's team, they'd understood what they were dealing with. The vessel was some kind of lifeboat, designed to carry survivors between dimensions when their reality became uninhabitable. And according to the increasingly urgent warnings flashing across every crystal surface, something was making their current dimension uninhabitable right now. Marcus pressed his palm against the main control crystal, hoping to learn more. The moment his skin made contact, his mind exploded with information. Images flooded his consciousness. Vast machines consuming stars. Entire star systems winking out of existence. Refugee fleets fleeing across dimensional boundaries. And behind it all, a presence that hurt to perceive directly. He stumbled backward, his mind reeling. The ship's intelligence had tried to download its entire database directly into his brain. Most of it hadn't stuck, but enough remained to terrify him. The universe was in danger, not just their galaxy or their local cluster. But reality itself was being consumed by something that existed between dimensions. The Cathara had been running from it. This ship was one of thousands scattered across multiple realities, each carrying refugees and vital information about the threat. But the dimensional anchors were failing. The barriers between realities were breaking down. Soon, there would be nowhere left to run. Marcus. Respond. We're detecting massive gravitational distortions around your position. The incoming ships are broadcasting what sounds like evacuation warnings. Marcus grabbed his helmet and sealed his suit. The ship was preparing for something, and every instinct told him he needed to be ready. The crystal sphere pulsed once, twice, then released a wave of energy that passed through him without physical effect, but left him feeling fundamentally changed. He could see it now. The dimensional fractures spreading through local space like cracks in glass. The approaching ships weren't hostile. They were more refugees, drawn by the activation of the Cathara vessel's beacon. But behind them, reality itself was unraveling. As Marcus raced back through the ship's corridors toward the airlock, the translation computer finally decoded the most important message. Human genetic pattern recognized. Dimensional resonance compatible. Integration protocol available. The ship wanted him to become its pilot. Not just to fly it, but to merge with its systems and carry on the mission of protecting refugees from the reality storm. The Cathara had tried and failed. Their biology wasn't compatible with the ship's dimensional manipulation systems. But humans were different. Something in their genetic structure, their neural patterns, made them uniquely suited for dimensional travel. The ship had been waiting for someone like Marcus to find it. He reached the airlock and cycled through, his mind racing. In minutes, he would have to explain to his crew that their salvage operation had become a rescue mission. that the strange ship they'd found wasn't just valuable technology, but possibly the key to survival for their entire species. As he activated his magnetic boots and pushed off toward the Iron Maiden, Marcus looked back at the Kythera vessel. It was beautiful in a way that transcended aesthetics. Every curve and bioluminescent strip served a purpose in its complex mission. And now, somehow, that mission had become his responsibility. The approaching ships were closer now, visible as distant points of light accelerating toward their position. Behind them, space itself seemed to shimmer and twist, as if reality was developing a fever. Whatever was chasing the refugees across dimensions had found this reality too. Marcus activated his comm. "Control. This is Chen. I'm coming back aboard. But we need to talk. All of us. What I found in there changes everything." "Copy that, Marcus. Hangar Bay is prepped for your arrival. And Marcus? Make it fast. Our new friends out there are broadcasting first contact protocols, but they're also powering weapons. I think they're expecting trouble." As Marcus jetted across the void between ships, the Kythera vessel pulsed behind him like a second heartbeat. The integration protocol was still active, waiting for his decision. He could feel it calling to him, offering knowledge and power beyond imagination, but at the cost of his humanity. Or maybe not the cost of his humanity, maybe the chance to save it. Marcus sealed the airlock behind him as the Iron Maiden's artificial gravity pulled him down to the hangar deck. Captain Rodriguez was waiting with the entire crew, their faces tense with worry. Through the hangar's observation windows, the approaching refugee ships were now visible as sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. "Talk to me, Marcus. What did you find in there?" Rodriguez demanded, her weathered face creased with concern. Marcus pulled off his helmet and ran a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. How could he explain what he'd experienced? The ship's consciousness touching his mind, the warnings about reality storms, the revelation that humanity might be the key to dimensional travel? "Captain, that's not just a Kythera ship. It's something much older, much more advanced. And it's not from our dimension." The crew exchanged glances. Sarah Kim, their xenobiologist, stepped forward. "What do you mean? Not from our dimension? That's theoretical physics. Not engineering. Not theoretical anymore." Marcus activated his portable scanner and projected the energy readings he'd recorded. "Look at these patterns. The power core isn't generating energy, it's channeling it from somewhere else. Multiple somewhere elses. The ship exists in several dimensions simultaneously." Chief Engineer Torres whistled low. "That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would tear apart local space-time, unless you're not fighting the dimensional barriers, but working with them. The ship grows its systems to resonate with dimensional frequencies. It doesn't force its way between realities. It slips between them like water finding cracks in stone." Rodriguez studied the readings with a navigator's eye for detail. "Assuming you're right, what does this mean for us? Why are refugee ships heading our way? And why are they armed?" Before Marcus could answer, Communications Officer Liu interrupted from his station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the lead refugee ship. Audio only. But our computers are finally making headway with the translation. Put it through." The hangar filled with a voice that sounded almost human, but with harmonics that suggested a very different vocal structure. "Salvage vessel. Iron Maiden. This is Guardian Ship Perseverance. You have activated a dimensional beacon. We are here to assist with refugee evacuation procedures. Please respond if you require aid in operating Nexus technology." Rodriguez looked at Marcus. "Nexus technology? That's what they call the dimensional manipulation systems." "Captain, I think we need to hear what they have to say. This isn't just about one ship anymore. And our..." "Open a channel, Liu. Channel open, Captain." Rodriguez keyed her comm. "Guardian Ship Perseverance. This is Captain Maria Rodriguez, of the salvage vessel Iron Maiden. We found your beacon ship drifting, and we're attempting repairs. We're not familiar with Nexus technology. Can you explain the situation?" The reply came quickly, tinged with what sounded like relief. "Captain Rodriguez, We have been searching for the seedling for many cycles. You have done well to activate its systems. We are refugees from the 73rd reality, fleeing the Devourers. The seedling was sent ahead to find species capable of dimensional resonance. You have found us instead. Sarah Kim grabbed Marcus's arm. Did they say 73rd reality? How many realities are there? As far as we know, Marcus said quietly, infinite. But apparently, something is consuming them one by one. Rodriguez keyed the comm again. Perseverance. What are these Devourers? And what do you mean by dimensional resonance? The Devourers are difficult to explain in your language. They exist between realities, consuming the energy that maintains dimensional barriers. When they finish with one reality, they move to the next. We estimate your reality has perhaps one of your years before the barriers become too weak to maintain stable existence. The hangar fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Marcus felt the weight of the translation settling on his shoulders. 1 year. The entire universe had 1 year before it ceased to exist. Captain, he said quietly. The ship's computer identified something in human genetic structure that makes us compatible with Nexus technology. More compatible than the original builders. I think that's why the beacon ship was sent to find us. Rodriguez turned to face him fully. Compatible how? The ship offered to integrate with me, to share its knowledge and abilities. I could learn to pilot it, to access the dimensional networks, to help coordinate the refugee evacuation. At what cost? Marcus hesitated. That was the question he'd been avoiding. I don't know. The consciousness I touched was alien but not hostile. It felt lonely, like it had been waiting for someone who could understand its purpose. The comm crackled again. Captain Rodriguez. We detect increasing dimensional instability in local space. The Devourers have found this reality sooner than predicted. We must begin evacuation procedures immediately. Do any of your crew show compatibility with Nexus technology? Torres grabbed a scanner and started taking readings from the crew. I'm showing unusual neural activity from Marcus. Brainwave patterns I've never seen before. It's like his mind is operating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. That happened when I touched the ship's control crystal. It's still happening. I can sense the dimensional fractures spreading through local space. They look like cracks in glass. But they're cracks in the foundation of reality itself. Sarah Kim studied her own scanner readings. Marcus, your cellular structure is showing changes too. Nothing harmful. But your DNA is resonating at frequencies that shouldn't be possible. It's like you're becoming a living interface for dimensional technology. Rodriguez made a decision with the quick certainty that had kept her crew alive for 20 years. Perseverance. We have one crew member showing compatibility. What exactly are you asking him to do? The seedling requires a consciousness capable of dimensional navigation. Your crew member would merge with its systems, becoming both pilot and coordinator for refugee operations in this sector. The process is irreversible, but not destructive. He would retain his memories and personality while gaining access to the Nexus network that spans all realities. Marcus stepped forward. Captain, I volunteer. Wait. Rodriguez held up a hand. What kind of refugee operations? How many people are we talking about? Your reality contains approximately 12 billion sentient beings across 4 species. The Nexus can evacuate perhaps half before dimensional collapse. Your crew member would help coordinate safe passage to the 115th reality, which shows stable dimensional barriers. The number hit the crew like a physical blow. Half the galaxy's population, 6 billion people and aliens who would die if they couldn't evacuate in time. Liu looked up from his communication station. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the local sector. Ships are appearing out of nowhere. It looks like an entire fleet just materialized. Through the observation windows, space was filling with vessels of every conceivable design. Some looked like the sleek refugee ships that had first approached. Others were massive arc ships designed to carry entire populations. A few were clearly military vessels. Their weapon systems powered, but not targeted. Perseverance. How many refugees are you expecting? The Nexus Network has identified 17 stable dimensional pathways to your reality. We estimate 400 million beings will attempt evacuation through this sector alone. The Seedling is one of only 3 Nexus vessels in your galaxy capable of coordinating such an operation. Marcus felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. 400 million lives depending on his choice. But more than that, the continuation of human civilization itself. If he didn't accept the integration, humanity would face the reality storm with no way to escape. There's something else, he said, looking at Rodriguez. When I touched the ship's systems, I saw possible futures. Timelines where humanity learns to use Nexus technology. We don't just survive the reality storm. We become guardians ourselves. We help other species escape from realities under attack. Torres shook her head. This is insane. We're talking about abandoning our entire universe. No, Sarah Kim said quietly. We're talking about carrying it with us. If Marcus integrates with that ship, he becomes a bridge between human technology and dimensional manipulation. We could establish colonies in the new reality that preserve human culture, human knowledge, human values. Rodriguez walked to the observation window and stared out at the growing fleet of refugee ships. Marcus, if you do this, what happens to you? Do you stay human? The ship's consciousness showed me glimpses. I would still be me, but enhanced, able to perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously, to navigate between realities, to communicate with any species connected to the Nexus network. I'd become something new, but built on human foundations. The comm crackled again. Captain Rodriguez, dimensional readings indicate the Devourers have detected the evacuation fleet. We have perhaps 6 hours before they arrive in force. Your crew member must integrate with the Seedling immediately, if we are to save as many as possible. Marcus looked around at his crewmates. These people who had become his family over years of salvage operations in deep space. I have to do this. Not just for the refugees, but for everyone. For Earth. For the colonies. For every human child who deserves a chance to grow up in a stable reality. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Then we do it. But not alone. The Iron Maiden stays with you through this operation. We'll coordinate with the refugee fleet. Help with the evacuation, however we can. Captain, Liu interrupted. I'm receiving evacuation orders from Earth Defense Force. They want all civilian vessels to report to designated rally points for emergency evacuation. How did they find out so quickly? Marcus smiled grimly. The Nexus network probably contacted every government in the galaxy simultaneously. That's how you coordinate an operation this size. Every military force, every civilian agency, every corporate fleet gets mobilized at once. As if to confirm his words, space around them continued filling with ships. Military destroyers appeared alongside cargo haulers and passenger liners. Alien vessels of every description materialized as the Nexus network activated dormant dimensional pathways. The greatest evacuation in galactic history was beginning, and Marcus Chen, engineer and reluctant hero, was about to become one of its primary coordinators. He sealed his helmet and activated his magnetic boots. I'm going back to the Seedling. Wish me luck. Rodriguez clasped his shoulder. Bring them home, Marcus. All of them. As Marcus launched himself across the void toward the living ship, he could feel its consciousness reaching out to welcome him home. The integration process would change everything about his existence. But somewhere in the depths of his mind, he could sense the gratitude of millions of beings whose lives would be saved by his choice. Behind him, the Iron Maiden powered up its engines to join the evacuation fleet. Ahead, the Seedling pulsed with anticipation, its bioluminescent systems brightening as they prepared to welcome their new pilot. The reality storm was coming, but humanity would not face it alone. Marcus floated in the Seedling's central chamber, his hand hovering inches above the crystal control matrix. Around him, the refugee fleet grew larger by the hour, as more ships emerged from dimensional rifts. Each arrival brought fresh reports of the Devourers' advance through neighboring sectors. The integration process had to be perfect. One mistake, and the evacuation network would collapse, stranding millions of beings in a doomed reality. Marcus closed his eyes and pressed his palm against the warm crystal surface. The sensation was beyond description. His consciousness exploded outward, touching every ship in the fleet, every refugee family huddled in cargo holds, every desperate pilot pushing aging engines beyond their limits. But more than that, he could perceive the dimensional structure of reality itself, the invisible threads that held existence together. The Devourers had found their reality 3 days ago, according to Nexus time measurements. They appeared as vast shadows, moving between dimensions, consuming the energy that maintained the barriers between realities. Where they passed, space-time became unstable, stars flickered like dying candles, and entire star systems simply ceased to exist. Marcus felt his body changing as the integration deepened. His nervous system expanded to interface with the ship's bio-neural networks. His perception broadened to encompass multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. He remained fundamentally human, but enhanced beyond anything his species had previously achieved. Through the Nexus network, he could see Earth. Massive evacuation fleets surrounded the planet as transport ships loaded refugees with mechanical efficiency. The human military had adapted to the crisis with characteristic stubbornness, treating the evacuation as a tactical withdrawal rather than a defeat. Admiral Chen, his sister Sarah, was coordinating the civilian evacuation from Luna Base. The irony wasn't lost on him. His sister commanded fleets, while he had become something that transcended traditional command structures. Through the seedling systems, he could communicate directly with any consciousness in the evacuation network, coordinate movements across dozens of star systems simultaneously, and perceive threats that existed between dimensions. "Integration complete," he announced to the Iron Maiden through the ship's communication array. His voice carried harmonics now, as if multiple versions of himself were speaking across dimensional frequencies. "Beginning full network coordination." Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled back. "How do you feel, Marcus?" "Still you in there?" Marcus smiled, though his face was now partially obscured by bioluminescent neural interfaces that had grown from the ship's control systems. "Still me, Captain. Just more than I used to be. I can see everything now. The refugee streams from 14 star systems, the Devourer advance patterns, the stable dimensional corridors to the new reality. What's our status? How many can we save?" The question hurt, because he could see all possible outcomes simultaneously. Current projection: 7,400,000,000 successful evacuations. That's 62% of total galactic population. Better than initial estimates, but still leaving nearly 5 billion beings behind. Through the Nexus network, Marcus reached out to other Guardian ships. The Perseverance coordinated evacuations from the Galactic Rim. The Sanctuary managed refugee flows from the core worlds. A dozen other vessels served similar functions, each piloted by beings who had accepted integration with Nexus technology. But the numbers were still wrong. Too many people, not enough transport capacity, not enough time. The Devourers moved faster through empty space than anticipated, consuming the energy that powered dimensional rifts before evacuation ships could use them. Marcus felt a familiar presence touch his consciousness. Captain Torres of the Guardian ship Sanctuary, a Altarian who had accepted integration 6 months ago when the Devourers first attacked her reality. Human Guardian, her thoughts carried the warm harmonics of her species. "Your people show remarkable adaptability to crisis situations. The evacuation statistics from human-controlled sectors exceed all projections. Humans are good at impossible odds," Marcus replied through the neural link. "But we need more transport capacity. Is there any way to accelerate the dimensional tunnel construction? Perhaps. The seedling possesses manufacturing capabilities most Guardians lack. It was designed to establish new colonies, not just coordinate evacuations. You could construct additional transport vessels." Marcus felt the possibility unfold in his enhanced consciousness. The seedling could indeed grow additional ships, using materials harvested from asteroids and dead worlds. But it would require him to direct the ship's biomanufacturing systems, essentially becoming a living shipyard. The process would be exhausting and would leave him unable to coordinate evacuation traffic for several hours. But 50 new transport ships could save another 2 million refugees. Beginning emergency manufacturing protocol, he announced to the network. All Guardians, adjust coordination patterns to compensate for reduced capacity from seedling. The ship around him transformed, chambers that had served as living quarters reconfigured into manufacturing bays. The hull extended pseudopods toward nearby asteroids, breaking them down into component materials. Biomechanical systems that had taken the Kithara centuries to grow activated emergency construction protocols. Marcus felt his consciousness stretch thin as he directed the complex process. Part of him guided the molecular assemblers that built ship hulls from raw carbon and silicon. Another part of his awareness managed the bio-neural networks that would serve as ship control systems. A third aspect of his enhanced mind maintained communication with the evacuation fleet. Through it all, he remained aware of the approaching threat. The Devourers had consumed the Epsilon sector, leaving behind empty space where 6 star systems had once existed. They were following the dimensional energy trails left by the evacuation fleet, drawn by the massive power expenditures required for dimensional travel. Guardian Marcus, came an urgent transmission from the military escort vessels. We're detecting massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. The Devourers are closer than predicted. Marcus shifted his perception to long-range sensors throughout the fleet. The Devourers appeared as tears in space-time itself. Dark wounds in reality that hurt to perceive directly. They moved through normal space by consuming the fundamental forces that held atoms together, leaving trails of exotic matter and temporal distortion. All ships, acceleration protocol now. We have 4 hours to complete current evacuations before this sector becomes uninhabitable. The fleet responded with desperate efficiency. Transport ships that had been loading refugees methodically now crammed beings into every available space. Cargo vessels designed for freight were hastily converted to carry families. Even military destroyers opened their weapon bays to accommodate evacuees. Marcus pushed the seedlings' manufacturing systems beyond safe parameters. 50 transport ships became 60, then 70. Each new vessel required a fragment of his consciousness to serve as its pilot, spreading his awareness thinner but dramatically increasing rescue capacity. Through the network, he felt the gratitude of millions of beings finding space aboard evacuation vessels. Human families reunited after being separated across star systems. Altarian scholars preserving their species' cultural archives. Zephyrian children seeing their first glimpse of the dimensional tunnels that would carry them to safety. But the Devourers were adapting. Instead of consuming inhabited star systems randomly, they had begun targeting the dimensional anchor points that maintained the evacuation tunnels. Each destroyed anchor point collapsed an entire evacuation route, stranding refugees in doomed sectors. All Guardians, emergency protocol. Marcus broadcast through the Nexus network. We need to establish new anchor points faster than they can destroy them. Coordinate with local military forces for protective screens around dimensional infrastructure. The response was immediate. Guardian ships throughout the galaxy began growing new anchor systems, while military fleets engaged in desperate holding actions against the Devourers. It was a race between creation and destruction, with the survival of galactic civilization hanging in the balance. Marcus felt his sister's presence through the communication network as she coordinated Earth's final evacuation waves. Little brother, I don't know what you've become, but I'm proud of you. The refugee statistics from your sector are off the charts. Just doing what humans do best, Sarah. Refusing to give up when everyone else says the situation is hopeless. Speaking of hopeless, we've got a problem. The Devourers have learned to predict our evacuation routes. They're positioning themselves at dimensional exit points in the target reality. Some refugee ships are arriving to find Devourers waiting for them. The news hit Marcus like a physical blow. The safe reality they'd been evacuating to was no longer safe. The Devourers had found a way to cross dimensional barriers faster than the refugee fleets could travel. But as the horrible implications sank in, Marcus felt something else. The seedling was responding to his emotional state, its bio-neural networks resonating with his determination. Through the ship's consciousness, he could perceive possibilities that pure logic would have missed. Sarah, what if we're thinking about this wrong? What if instead of running from the devourers, we give them something else to chase? What do you mean? Marcus reached out through the Nexus network, touching the consciousness of every Guardian ship simultaneously. We create a false dimensional signature. Make it look like the entire evacuation fleet is heading for an empty reality, while the real ships slip through undetected routes. That would require enormous energy expenditure, and someone would have to pilot the decoy fleet. The Guardian ships can generate the false signatures. We're already interfaced with dimensional technology. We can make it look like millions of refugees are fleeing to a reality that contains nothing but empty space. Captain Torres's consciousness touched his across the network. Human Guardian. Such a deception would require all Guardian vessels to maintain the illusion simultaneously. We would be unable to coordinate actual evacuations while the ruse was active. Then we automate the evacuation process, upload our coordination protocols to the transport ship's navigation systems, and trust them to find their own way to safety. It was a desperate plan. Remove all human oversight from the largest evacuation in galactic history, and hope that automated systems could handle the complexity. But the alternative was watching helplessly as devourers consumed refugee ships at their destination points. All Guardians, prepare for synchronous deception protocol. We have one chance to save the refugees already in transit. Marcus felt his consciousness merge with the other Guardian ships across the galaxy. Together, they created a massive false dimensional signature, making it appear that the entire evacuation fleet was converging on a single empty reality. The energy expenditure was enormous, requiring the Guardian ships to burn through weeks of stored power in minutes. But it worked. The devourers took the bait, following the false signature toward empty space, while the real refugee fleet slipped through unmonitored dimensional corridors to safety. Through automated reports, Marcus watched the evacuation statistics climb. 8 billion successful evacuations. 9 billion. The automated systems were working better than anyone had dared hope, guided by navigation protocols developed through Guardian consciousness, but executed with mechanical precision. Deception holding, reported Captain Torres. Devourers are pursuing the false signature. Estimated time until they discover the ruse: 6 hours. Then we have 6 hours to finish evacuating our sectors and join the refugees in the new reality. The final phase of the evacuation was bittersweet. Marcus watched through the seedling sensors as the last transport ships departed from dying star systems. Worlds that had supported civilization for thousands of years were abandoned to the approaching darkness. But they had done it. Final count: 9 billion. 200 million successful evacuations. 77% of galactic population saved. Not perfect, but far better than anyone had believed possible. Guardian Marcus, came a transmission from the refugee fleet already establishing colonies in the target reality. We're detecting the first Guardian ships arriving. Your arrival coordinates have been prepared. Marcus took one last look at the reality he was leaving behind. Earth was a distant speck, already consumed by the expanding zone of dimensional instability. The star systems he'd grown up among were collapsing into exotic matter, as the fundamental forces that held them together were devoured. But in the new reality, human colonies were already taking root. Schools were being established for refugee children. Scientists were adapting Nexus technology to human engineering principles. The greatest evacuation in galactic history had become the foundation for an even greater renaissance. Iron Maiden, this is Guardian Marcus. Ready for dimensional transition. Copy that, Marcus. See you on the other side. The seedling activated its dimensional drives and slipped between realities, carrying with it the hopes of 9 billion refugees and the promise of a future built on the foundations of the past. Marcus Chen, who had started the week as a simple Starship engineer, had become something new. A guardian of galactic civilization. A bridge between human determination and cosmic possibility. The reality storm had been survived. Now came the harder task of building a new galaxy from the refugees of the old one. But as Marcus felt the gratitude of billions of beings through the Nexus network, he knew that humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or explorers, but as guardians. As the species that refuse to let others face extinction alone,